Maybe life is a journey, much like a car or van moving from point A to B. Maybe life is a race that offers rewards to both the swift and those who endure it to the end. Maybe life is a complex mathematical question that we just need to solve. Or maybe life is just a cosmic trend. Something that happens every few years, like 100,000 years or so. And then poof, just like that, it's gone. Do join us as we try to figure this whole thing out. This is The Trending Mind. Friday evenings at 7 on Facebook Live.
Okay, good evening, one and all, and welcome to Trending Mind number 9, our first edition for 2021. With me, we have Dr. Blackman and Dr. Luard. Reneto is going to join us shortly. So, guys, how are you, and how is your New Year so far?
Well, I guess ladies before gentlemen.
I am great. I'm doing really, really well. My New Year was quiet but outstanding. I'm glad to be around amidst all that has been happening. And, got my vaccine shot and I'm ready to go.
How about you, Terrence?
Yes, I suppose I'm well. I'm very well. I too had a very quiet sort of New Year's celebration, and obviously, mild concerns around some of what we saw in Washington D.C. on January 6th. But outside of that, I think if we look at the year, I think we're feeling good that there's definitely been a political change in the United States, and so all in all, things are well. I'm looking forward to getting my vaccine shortly. I'm not high up on the list as high on the list as I thought I was. So I haven't had it yet, but looking forward to getting it soon. Yeah.
You should be on the list right now.
Yeah, well, I'm anticipating. I put my I've been looking at a website. I put my thing on a website, so that as soon as they're ready for me, they hopefully will call me and I'll get going. I think that's a really important one. I mean, the first one for us to be able to talk about, just encouraging people to trust the process and to be vaccinated, because this is something that we've done for many years. It's the reason that we don't have polio and all of the other kinds of things that are. It's actually quite strange that many people are at this moment being reticent about taking the vaccine and so on. So hope is that many more of us will take the vaccine and we will be better prepared for the future.
Yes, I certainly agree with that. Okay. As per norm, we will open up with our little creative question. Now, there's this saying that we would have heard from back in the day, and it says, money can't buy happiness. Now, agree or disagree, and tell us why you either agree or disagree. Starting with you, Michelle.
I agree. And I agree that money can't buy happiness, because I firmly believe that happiness is a state of mind. It's a state of being. It's an internal balance that we have to have within ourselves. We have to be happy about who we are as a person, as people, about our contribution in life, and if we believe that we have maximized our talents as well as our opportunities, I think we would get a certain level of happiness if we understand how to meditate and how to really, money buys things, but rich people commit the most suicide without any data, that is, but just based on a layman outlook. That is because when you have, I believe that is because when you have reached that plateau where you have everything around you and you don't have health or you don't have that peace of mind, you don't have that happiness, and therefore, you're not good. So,
So you're saying I mean, there's and there's no form of happiness that money can buy either, Michelle.
I don't know where it is sold. So if if we think about, or if I think about what I think you are thinking about, and I say, okay, that's not happiness in the true sense of the word because it is very temporary.
I got you. I got you. Terrence, what's your take?
Well, I'm always happy to hear Dr. Lawrence take on these matters because she just gave me a thought that I never had. She said, "Where is the happiness sold? That way you could take your money and go buy it." And it's not quite clear where the happiness is sold that you can take your money. But I think that on one level, um, and money can make you less unhappy. I would say it that way. If I mean these people when they told us this saying they were living in Guyana and they didn't have to deal with, their monthly Con Ed bill, AT&T, the mortgage guy, every last one of these people who, show up at your door at some point late in the month and early in the new month. Well, and then if you find yourself a little stressed in terms of getting this, you think to yourself, well, the more money I have, you go to bed and you pray that you would be that the Lord would bless you financially so that you could manage these challenges. So on that front, I certainly think that money can minimize your unhappiness because then when things don't go right financially, particularly in this society, you find yourself very stressed, and so the more of it you have, the more it seems that it's better. But I think even these moments give you a chance to rummage through your closets and so on. So you look through your old papers and you see that at some point in your life you were working for. I remember as an undergraduate in college, I always tell those guys we were working for less than $5 an hour, and somehow we seemed to survive and we were happy. And now, if you get to $500 an hour, and you think the problems seem pretty much the same. And so I think this is where, what Dr. Stewart is sort of saying to us, that sometimes that happiness is just about what's in your head and about how view your contributions to your family, your contributions to your community, how you are, embedded in, the various networks that you're a part of. And so, yes, having money is an important thing, uh, but perhaps it can't buy you happiness. Maybe that's the truth. It can't really buy you happiness. It can make you less unhappy. That much I know for sure. It can make you less unhappy.
I'll take that. I'll take the less unhappy because
Yeah.
seriously, Terrence, you live in the best country in the world. This is about the country that you could don't pay anything and get to live, But we choose to not want to live that life because of how to some extent, our upbringing, our consciousness, our, ability. But there are many people here who it doesn't matter if Connor turn up at their door. It doesn't matter what the credit score looks like. It really doesn't matter. And if
Yeah.
you're home, you're more than likely living in your parents. You can live in your parents' house, or your parents have a place that you can go back to. You can plant and you can eat and you can, so. It's how you want to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, but I do think, this idea of happiness is a very important one, and so, you know it's something that we should really have discussions about, like, what does it mean for you to be a happy man or a happy woman, a content man or a content woman? What are the things that, how do you move towards that contentment in the modern world? And you can see that this lack of contentment and the lack of happiness is the source of a large number of problems that we deal with consistently. I mean, certainly people who, like us, are in the teaching business. I mean, you encounter all sorts of things on a daily basis that make you wonder about, how people are orienting themselves to the lives that we're living. So, yeah, it's a good question. Well, yeah, so I want for myself money and happiness. I don't want money or happiness. I would be good with money and happiness too. Yes.
Okay.
Hello, good night.
Good
Good
night.
night,
And happy New
Reneto, and
Year to
welcome
you.
aboard.
Hi, good
Okay,
night.
the opening question is money. We looking at the saying, money can't buy happiness. Agree or disagree, and tell us why or why not.
Money can't buy happiness. No, because happiness begins with you. Happiness comes from inside you. You could be very poor, but you could be very poor, but you could be very happy. You don't always have to have money. You intrinsically you can be happy. You don't necessarily need money. Money makes things easier. Money makes life easier. Money provide is a means of exchange, a medium of exchange to provide certain things that will make your life a little more simple. However, you could have everything, but you may not be happy. You will always want, and there's some people, don't matter what they have, they always want more and more and more. So to me, happiness begins with you. It's a state of mind, it's a state of being. It's not a physical thing at all. Not for me.
I take Renita's point, and Dr. Blackman, you started to hint at, we need to understand what happiness actually means. If we can quickly, look back at our own lives, starting with you, Dr. Blackman, what is happiness? In a nutshell, how would you define it?
Well, happiness for me is, being at Maltino's Sports Club and watching a cricket game on an early Saturday morning when the grass is just a little wet from the dew and everything looks perfect and the whole world is a set of possibilities and you don't have any bad things happen yet in the day. So happiness for me is the thing that you feel before all of the things actually happen. A set of possibilities. So, you know.
Okay, how about you, Michelle?
Happiness for me is a state of being. It's a peace that I have within me. It's a joy being able to. It's a joy being able to do the things that I want to do, the things that are available to me. It's helping people. It's making opportunities for young people. That's happiness.
Okay. So, but given what we know we can do with money, this is my final question on this thread. Given what we know we can do with money, okay, if we're not able to buy happiness, can we say rent or lease it?
You know what, Andy? I may okay if I get $10,000 now, right? I may decide to put it towards the school or something for somebody or to do something, right? Somebody else may want to go on a vacation. Somebody else may not want $10,000 because they're looking at a Lamborghini, and so it's still not bringing them happiness. So it is not the money; it is eternal. It is you. It is what you feel. Some people have at the time when saltfish was cheap, some saltfish and some rice, and they happy to sit with it. right? Another person wants all kinds of other things, So it's really a state of being, and it's a level of contentment that you have within yourself and within what you get from seeing how you impact other people, probably, at least for me. But for another person, it may be different. So that joy may come differently for someone else, but it's getting to that place of knowing how to find that joy, because there are people who don't know how to find that joy. So even though it is available to them, or I may be seeing so many opportunities that they may still want to commit suicide because they're not happy with it.
Okay. So, Terrence, do you think we can rent or lease it given what we can do with money?
For a short bit. You can spend the money to go on a nice trip, on a nice vacation, and sit in a nice place, and for a brief moment you can kind of forget all of the things that trouble you, and but it's like the Bob Marley song, you're running and you're running and you're running away, but you can't run away from yourself. I think this is kind of the essence of the thing. You can have $1 million, you can have $1 billion, but at the end of the day, you can't run away from yourself. You either learn to, as Dr. Loretta said, how to find those places of pleasure, how to find those places of joy, genuine pleasure, things that bring you genuine pleasure and joy. And if you understand how to do that, then it's less about whether or not you're renting it, or it's about some genuine, authentic thing that sits at the core of you that say, this makes me happy, this makes me feel good. And I don't think you can rent it. You truthfully have to learn how to be in that moment. And some people never learn to, and they end up being people that you perhaps don't want to be around too much.
Finally, you, Reneto, can it be rented or leased? Your mic, Reneto.
Muted. Renita's muted.
Sorry. Like I stated in the beginning, you can't rent or lease happiness, because you can give somebody all the money in the world and they still will not be happy. There's two things I realize in life you can't buy. Money can't buy: health and happiness. You can't buy either of those. You might be able to pay for the best surgeons or the best medicine or medication or surgery, but it may not correct whatever condition you were trying to correct. So to me, happiness is a state of mind. You have to be contented. You have to feel that euphoria, that elation, and you have to be able to do it for yourself without the aid of money. Like I said, don't get me wrong, money provides certain basic needs, fulfill certain basic needs, but you can't lease happiness, you can't rent happiness. You can be happy by just being alone in a house. My friends know me. I hardly like to go out. I like to be home, and I could be very happy being alone and enjoying myself. For me to get dressed and go out is a chore, right? But that's just me. So no amount of money can get me to run out, and money provides a means for me to pay certain things, for me to live where I am, but that don't necessarily make me happy. So unless happy begins inside. Happiness is a state of mind. That's all I can say about that. I don't think it can be leased or rented, because look at people who have tons and tons of money, loads and loads of money. Sometimes you can tell that they're unhappy, very unhappy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Renita. All right, we're going to head into the core of our discussion, and it's about core subjects at the secondary school level. We want to look at our suggestions, the suggestions of others. But before we get there, we're going to just take a short break, and we'll get back to that. All right, we're back. Yeah, we want to look at our suggestions for what should be the core subjects at the secondary school level in Guyana. Now, I'm just going to briefly, just to give us a little background. The core subjects as listed on the CXC site are as follows: English, mathematics, social studies, modern languages, in this case French and Spanish, and integrated science. Now, I made a quick call to the headmistress of Bishop's High because I wanted to check to see if the schools, if the core subjects were as listed on the CXC site. And there was a slight difference. I spoke to Miss Marlene Gibson, who's presently the head teacher of Bishop's High, and she said that the core subjects are maths, English language, English literature, social studies, and integrated science. All right? Now, first thing off the bat, Terence, listening to that, what's your initial reaction to just
So my
that
immediate,
list?
yeah, my immediate thought is that there's no computer science. So English, math, social studies, integrated science, English literature. There's no computer science. I mean, this conversation that we're having right here, which is kind of ubiquitous across the world today, is being mediated by some form of computer science. And so that, that immediately says that there's some work to be done. I don't think we can think of anything that we're doing that does not engage the computer in some way. So that would be my first observation. The second I would say there's no history, and so if you have a list of core subjects and there's no history, then that says something about where we're located, and I can say more things about that, but I'll wait to hear what other folks have to say.
Okay, Michelle. Yeah, just your initial reaction.
So I am pretty much thinking the same way Terence was thinking. I was thinking about the computer science. I was also saying that where we stand now, we need something like political history of Guyana per se. Just the history and the politics of Guyana is very important. I don't know how that would be taught in terms of, but even just doing history, it would help. Now, social studies encompasses some amount of, it's a kind of mixed bag. It has some history in it, but how does it go? And then if you're looking at integrated science, where are our engineers coming from?
Okay, I get it. Renita, your initial response.
Um,
Almost like the two doctors on the panel. I felt some of the subjects that they're doing. I said especially integrated science. What type of science are they integrating? Is it just physics, chemistry, or are they doing social sciences such as economics and those other sciences that could prepare them for the real world? Um,
No, I don't think social sciences are included
they're not included social sciences. So integrated science, when they say integrated sciences, they're just talking about chemistry, biology, phys chem, bio. Okay.
We did integrated science while I was in high school. There was the science stream and then the integrated science. The integrated science student is a mixture of free science, physics, and bio.
Right. So those are the basic subjects that they're giving them. So to me, they're not really preparing them for society today. You know, there's no international business, there's no basic finance, there is no economics, things like that. I have mentioned, I think I sent them to you. Computer science, integrated science, yes, but if it could have a focus on computer science, programming, STEM program, guide them to where the world is going. We have been taking those since my dad took those. I took those. I'm in my 50s, but the world has moved away from a lot of the things that we did. The world has moved away, but we haven't. So we need to really take a look at what's going on so that we can actually pull ourselves into the 21st century. Those kids in Guyana, they have the capacity and the ability to do anything. We just have to feed them and nurture them and provide these streams for them to go into.
So, if I may say something, if I look at the subjects offered at CXC right now, parallel with the base for the Regents examination here, it is pretty comparable. Because the 5 basic subjects, remember we're talking about the core subject, the 5 core subjects for a Regents diploma is math, the basic math, English, the two histories, one science. So, kind of, sort of, they all within that mode. However, students here, that's not where it stops, So what else is there? What other offerings are available to the students? And is it offered at CXC, or do we have courses that can benefit our students in Guyana that it doesn't have to end in CXC, but it is beneficial to what is happening in Guyana?
Okay. In exploring the CXC site, CXC offers an associate degree, and there they have a very interesting listing. We're going to get to that shortly, but before we get there, and get more of your comments on what should be the core subjects. I want us to deal with the question: what should we consider as we prepare young people now to enter into the mainstream? Are we preparing them to, quote unquote, earn a living, to get as much money as they can? Are we preparing them to build better relationships with their fellow men? What essentially are we preparing our young for as we consider the core subjects? I'll start with the educator, Michelle. You can take that first.
I think you're speaking to Guyana particularly, right?
Yes.
So when I look at what is happening presently in Guyana, which is the topic everyone shies away from, but our political system is greatly impacted and influenced by our educational system. So if we are submissive in school and that is how we are taught, that is how we grow up. That is what we become. So we become a very submissive, passive kind of person who don't really know our history, or we are told our history outside of what is necessarily the truth. And so we get to feeling a sense of inferiority, and no person can function in the real world having that those insecurities. You know, I'm a pretty positive and straightforward person. However, there are a number of things that I've had to learn coming out from the Guyanese culture in order to navigate my way through the system in the United States of America. And that's the exact system that may occur even in other Caribbean countries. So if you are extremely passive, you don't know how to market and sell yourself, you don't understand your value, you don't understand how to question authority, you don't understand when to make a move, you don't understand the impact of politics, then, you know, you're not really ready for the real world, no matter how well you can regurgitate information, which is what we call bright, right? So, that being said, I think somewhere along the line, people should incorporate different subject areas that teach kids in our classroom should be in such a manner that allow kids to be able to speak, to question things, to think about ideas, to come up with ideals, to think about, okay, how can we, you know, we have so much to offer in Guyana, but we don't have a real tourist industry. You know, we don't have marketing as a subject area, hospitality and tourism as a subject area within Guyana. Guyana is a nice people, but we don't have hospitality and tourism, you know, and we don't market it, and it's not a subject taught. So I think we need to have that. I think we need to do more computers where people can really navigate the real world. I think we have to allow kids to understand their history and how Guyana has evolved, and the importance of our four parents, and the different roles that they have played to the society, so that we can respect each other, so that we can really live in a country where one group of people are marginalized. Because no matter how much education I give to a child that looks like me, they will still be marginalized in Guyana, or they still have to feel like they have to, you know, suppress themselves in order to function. That's not education for me. Education for me is very broad based, and I think we have to approach it from that perspective. We have to come out from that shell of, I don't want to say nothing, boy. Me, no, you know, that's not proper. No, that's not it. Reneto is my signal, right? Go ahead, dear. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, sorry.
Okay, we need to go ahead. What should we think of even before putting together the list? You know,
Okay, I'm not sure of the educational system in Guyana now, but when I went to college here, right, almost every class puts you in a team, right? I believe in Guyana in high school, we need to start having the kids work in teams, diverse teams, diversity and inclusion. If we start our children from young working in teams that is representative of the races in Guyana, we can change the culture of Guyana. Because when we start to work in teams, we get to respect each other. Each culture, each race brings something different and valuable to the table. So we should start focusing, having our kids work in teams and do presentations. And even if that could become like an exam, because we get graded over here if we work in teams. And the effectiveness in the team depends on everybody's participation. So we're not going to just have some people doing all the work and some people just lagging on, you know? So, because I hated that when I was in college, and anybody who was slacking up, I would tell them, I'm going to listen. I'm not carrying you. You have to carry your weight, because the teachers would ask who did what and stuff. So if we can start our children, our students working in teams, embracing diversity and inclusiveness, and making presentations at the end of the semester or the end of the class season, start have that become a way that we work in Guyana, diverse and inclusiveness. So I think by the time they get to the workforce, they'll realize the value of diversity inclusion. Make it a verb. It sounds good, a nice catchphrase, diversity inclusion, but it's not effective until it's a verb executed, right? I believe in that. I also believe that we should teach our students what is excellent customer service, how to give and how to accept. How, like Loretta said, do not accept mediocrity. When you go to the bank, when you do any type of exchange, you speak, you give respect, and you expect that you should be answered respectfully and treated respectfully, not people dashing things at you, or you pitching the money to people, or when you call, they have an attitude like you're begging them for their service. Oh no. So we need to start changing mindsets about those things. So if we have these little mock programs in school, in the classroom, what is excellent customer service? What is an excellent customer experience? How can you create an excellent customer experience? So if we could start changing those values and those aspects in Guyana, because Guyana is going to become a country where we're going to be doing business. We're going to be dealing with all kinds of level of customers, and they're going to expect a certain amount of a certain behavior and to be treated a certain way. And if you want to create what's called a repeat customer, because repeat customer grow your business, you will have to know how to speak to those customers. So I think there's a lot of areas that we could actually start molding our students. A lot of forget the generation that's gone, right? They're bent in their ways, and they're stubborn. They feel that, oh, you guys left Guyana, there's nothing you can put in. But yes, we left Guyana, but we learned how the businesses exist for 200 years, and we like to give it and show you guys how it was able to sustain itself. So if we could start doing those in school, mock experiences, mock presentations, using diverse teams, I think we can advance and change the way we currently behave. If you look at the current president of the United States, his cabinet is so diverse. He understands what's going on. He understands where the future is. The future is not as one race and marginalizing the other races and looking down on the other races. Because guess what? It takes every race to purchase and to use other people's services. It takes every race to make an economy grow. It takes every race to spend. Money has one color, whichever well, in Ghana have very different colors, but money has one value, and most people are in business to create profit. And it's not just one race that does the shopping. It's not just one race that do the purchasing. What we have is mainly one and two races doing the business. That's the other thing we need to change in Guyana. Go to school, get a good job, go to school and learn how to run a business, learn how to be creative, become the employer, not just the employee. That's my view.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Reneto. Terence, can you pick it up from there?
Yeah, no, I think both Michelle and Renita have made really wonderful points. And so what I will say will in a way just say what they've said, but in some slightly different, because I think they've captured, the full spectrum of things. I think, as both Dr. Ward and Renita sort of pointed out, uh, this business of communicating ideas is really, really important. So, when someone, when you're done with school, you ought to be able to, and it's something that, I think we uh, as Guyanese immigrants to the United States, we learned very quickly that you have to be able to go into a room, you have to be able to go into some place with people who you don't know, who from all across the world, and to be able to say, I am Terrence Blackman, and I am here to do the following thing, and here is why you ought to be doing that thing, and this is how I can contribute to this project, and so on. So I think this is a very, very important idea, particularly for Guyana at this moment in its evolution, to really begin to develop young people who can communicate their ideas effectively in a global sense, not just to say something to their friend, but to have something where they can communicate in a very effective manner. I think the second point which I wanted to make, which has already been made, so I will just emphasize it, is this business that both Michelle and Reneto talked about, collaboration and working in teams. So this learning is when you're in a big society like this, the first thing you understand is that there's nothing that you can do by yourself. You quickly learn the limits of self, and so you understand that part of your being successful is about how you leverage self through a much larger group. And so this business of collaboration has to be central to any new sort of vision of education in Guyana. The other thing that I would say, and this has already been echoed, is that it's not just so much. I mean, so it's mentioned like what kinds of science or physics and chem. And this kind of regurgitating things that you. No, it's quite different. What you understand very quickly is that the people who can solve problems, and problems not just that you read it in the textbook and you underline the part where it ends with the question mark and you answer, but people who genuinely can read, understand, and apply that knowledge to solving problems, these are the people who will be successful. And there's a way in which we can educate our people to do that. And then the other two things have sort of come up. I'm just saying it nicely. At least I think I'm saying it gently rather than, the mention about the customer service. So I wanted just to say that, like, acting responsibly. So it means that when you engage people, from a position of respect, and that respect is one that flows in both directions. So if you think of it as customer service, but I just want to think of it as sort of, acting responsibly, so that, when I show up at the airport, if I'm a tourist, that I have the experience that is normal as part of the world. When I, take a cab from the airport to Georgetown, that, I'm not, being fleeced on my way to, acting responsibly. So this is something that comes out of the educational process. And then the last thing I would say, which we don't think a lot about, is sort of foresight and planning. So, one of the things we mentioned this at the beginning of it, just in terms of money and being able to manage our resources over the course of the time in an effective manner. One of the things that you realize and you learn very clearly is that the cultures that will be successful are those cultures that can have some foresight and some planning. So that if you're doing something, we have a group of people in a room who can look at the problem and who can think about what are the things that we don't know, as Don Rumsfeld would say. And we eliminate as many of those so that we don't come back a year later and say, boy, we should have done this, we should have done that, we should have done that, as we usually do. We come back and always we're sort of going over the thing again and again. So communication of ideas, problem solving, collaborative, foresight and planning, and acting responsibly. And then, so that was my list. And then I wanted to just really reemphasize something from Reneto's list, which I probably should have put in my list. It's about the need to do diverse teams. I think the current world that we're in You can't survive if your teams are not diverse. You can't survive if people from different backgrounds can't figure out how to work together. And we see this in many, many places. And so this business of doing diverse teams is something that should be an integral part of our education, because as Michelle noted at the very beginning, the big problem in Guyana is a political one. It's one that is around kind of, it's this big racial elephant that's sort of sitting in the room. And it's like playing a game where every 2 or 3 quarters, you put a whole new team in, and you forget the team that's on the bench and all the talented people that are on the bench. And so if you don't develop something to really begin to, from very early on, hit at that working in teams, developing that trust early on, so people understand the levels of competence that people are bringing, then I think we'll be in real trouble. And then the last thought I'll say, just specific to Guyana, the challenge that Guyana is dealing with now in terms of the emerging energy sector and its potential impact on the environment means that your education has got to be linked to somehow energy and the environment. And if you don't have that, you will essentially sort of, you will forfeit the future. You get to have young people be engaged with problem solving in the domains of energy and the environment. So that would be my broad thing about what you would want. Yeah.
Terrence, may I just say something? Andy?
Okay, go ahead.
Terrence, I think we have to begin by letting Guyanese understand that the definition of an ethnic group and a race, right? I'm not so sure we're clear on that, and if we define that, then I think half of our problems may go away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this is the challenge. This is the big challenge, and this has to be a part of the education. You see, it's we, and so now I'm just speaking specifically in the context of Guyana. So we have this motto, right? One people, one nation, one destiny, right? But I mean, we say it, but it's really, it doesn't work, right? We know that there's not. I mean, we sort of want, the only place this kind of comes up, it comes up in sports, when we actually have real sports teams, and I, being a fan of cricket, this comes up in our cricket, in a sense where we actually have a team that reflects the entire country in some way. And we argue a lot about who is going to play and where they're playing from and so on. So this question that Michelle raises is a really important one, right? We have to really sit and think very clearly about, if our motto is one people, one nation, one destiny, we have to have a story that says who are these people and how they become one. What is this nation and how it is one, and then what is this destiny that we're going to, right? Some of us are going in one direction, other people are going, what is this common destiny that is a Guyanese common? And I think Michelle's right. You can't approach that if you don't, in the educational setup, begin to ask and begin to have the young people even think about these questions, right? We're so naive, but it's not that we're naive, but we just don't explore it, right? So we don't really have a proper understanding of the indigenous people who are part of Guyana. We don't have a proper understanding of the African people who are part of Guyana. We don't have a proper understanding of, I mean, if you pick a random high school student and you say, well, tell me something about the history of the Portuguese in Guyana, and with some specificity, and they'll have real trouble. I mean, I'm sure the same books that they read. I always remember we had this book. It starts off with the Caribbean Reader or something. It said, in 1492, Columbus discovered the West Indies, and I had this one instructor whose name now the history, and I said, well, what happened in 1491? and she made me stand up on the desk, and you know, because that was the wrong question to ask, right? So the whole point is there were lots of people in Guyana in 1491. Those people their descendants are still there. What role are their descendants? I mean, you know, so I think this question that Michelle has raised about racial groups, ethnic groups, understanding the definitions of what these things mean when we say that, you know. So you know, even just this question that has sort of subliminally emerged here around, you know, how does one really, you know, and you can see this kind of thing occurring in Guyana quite frequently, where you know, the relationship between Guyanese who live in New York and London and Toronto and Guyanese who live in Guyana, and, you know, quite frequently someone goes like, as a point of pride, you know, well, the only time I left Guyana was when I went to the university to study, and this becomes like a badge of honor to say that, you know, somehow I've stayed in Guyana, and, you know, someone else has moved to Brooklyn, and in the context of the sort of larger world, this is sort of a, you know, it's a self-defeating prophecy. And so to really begin to understand the importance, I mean, you don't hear English people who live in as expatriates in Africa or in Hong Kong, and the English people at home saying, well, you went to Hong Kong to work, and so therefore you are not as English as I am anymore. You know, this kind of discussion, these are all parts of things that we need our education system to begin to deal with in a sort of holistic way. And it's a big challenge. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that this is an easy thing. It is a big challenge, and it starts with what you're starting to articulate. Like, what's the core? Maths, English, history, science. And what does that really mean?
Right.
How does that move us forward? And I think those are good questions to ask. You know, we won't know the answers, and we won't be able to give all of the answers to those questions.
And if I may say something, it might be taken out of context, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's my experience and my observation. I find when you go to Guyana and you try to change mindset and you try to communicate and give some information, and being Guyanese expatriate, it is not taken and it is not respected as much as if somebody else with an accent go to Guyana and say the exact same thing with an accent or with a different race, and they go and they expound the same exact thing that I try to give you for free. It's not accepted, it is not welcome, and is not treated with the same respect as it is with someone with an accent or someone who is a different hue or a different race.
Yeah.
And I am saying this is my experience, and I am saying this as a Guyanese. It's my experience, and I know it's experience from people who are very close to me, educated people, knowledgeable people, skilled, experienced people who America welcomes, who companies try to grab and elevate. But because they're Guyanese, when they went to Guyana and they tried to give the same thing for free, they're looked down upon. But somebody else with an accent to go and say the same thing, they're elevated and welcome. So that is another problem we have. We're very, and I include myself, we're very foreign-minded. We always think that somebody else's thing is better than our own. I said it.
Can I make one point about that, Andy? So I'm in agreement with what was just said, and I think that that's all part of the education. That's the kind of stuff that's in our head about how we value ourselves. And you know, this was raised earlier about, you know, how you know, Michelle talked about this when she said, you know, how should student respond, questioning and being critical, and this developing. And I wanted to make one other point, which was just so this question of the mindset. This is one that I missed. The question of a fixed mindset versus a kind of growth mindset and understanding, this should be a part of our educational setup. Why did I miss that? I wanted to say, when I was making a few notes for us, about the young woman who gave the wonderful poem at the inaugural address, right? And everyone was sort of blowing up about how great Amanda Gorman was and so on, and she was. What struck me was that it's as if people sort of imagined that she would not be great, right? So it's sort of like we're sitting there surprised that she was great. Yeah, and we didn't sort of, and that's about the mindset, and in a way that's just what we need to just express. It's sort of like we come to the thing, we know we're great, individually, but when we see someone else come to us, we're sort of sitting there thinking, are they going to be great? What should we expect from them? And I think that aspect also is something that needs to be really threaded in and threaded through our educational setup. It's really this ability to sort of discern and to value the people who are around you and who are like you, and to say, yeah, these people are capable of greatness just like everyone else.
Yeah.
And so we're not sitting there, Reneto comes to you and tells you, you need to set up your education system so that it teaches our young people to communicate ideas. And then 5 months later, a tall white guy shows up and says, you really need to help Guyanese to communicate ideas in the curriculum. And everyone said, great, I've never heard that before. Right? So it is true.
And they don't even understand. They don't even understand how we are valued here. They don't understand. You become SMEs in your company, in your organization, in your school. They don't understand how you are valued here. You're valued here. And you're going home with the knowledge you have acquired and attained and want to give it for free. And they're looking at you like, but willing to pay
can I make
others to convey the same information that you are willing to give for free. I don't get it.
Can I share one more just on that? I know, but one experience. So in the year 2000, I went to India, and I spent about 3 months or so at a place called the Harish Chandra Institute. It's a kind of math institute that they have in India, right? And so one of the things, this was in the year 2000. And so I left back and I wrote letters to various people telling them, man, some amazing things will emerge from India. You have no idea what's going on here. And so what was going on? At this Harish Chandra Institute, you had every summer, so we were there for a full summer, you had many of the Indian nationals who were part of universities in the United States, in Britain, Australia, all across the world. They would come to this Harish Chandra Institute in the summertime and spend all summer there teaching the courses and the things that they were doing at Princeton, and they were doing at MIT, and they were doing at RPI, and they were doing. And so here, I was sitting there thinking, I was sitting there completely stunned. Here were, young high school kids, bright high school kids who were in India, who were having access to some of the best professors in the world. And they made clear that this was what they wanted to do. I think now we see India as one of the few countries outside of the big zones who are producing vaccines and so on. Now we begin to understand what that sort of technology transfer looks like. And I think that is something, we're saying it in a sort of joke here. Not jokingly, we're saying it seriously, but we're smiling. But actually, it needs to be real serious educational policy to engage the people who are part of these kinds of things. Sort of like, running a school running a middle school or a high school in the United States. It's not to say that running one in Guyana is easy, but there's a level of complexity that goes to doing it here that says someone who understands how to do it well here should be someone who you should be listening to, because they can tell you some things about how to do it better in your context. And smart people understand that, and they do that. And I have as my personal witness a very smart example. And we've tried to do similar kinds of things at the University of Guyana. For reasons like Reneto has described, it's been more difficult, but these models are there for us whenever we want to sort of, embrace them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for
Yeah,
that went very well. Yeah, now I had over the past week I had reached out to a few individuals to get their take, to give me some feedback on what they feel should be the core subjects for secondary education in Guyana. And it was very interesting that I think the key aspect of the points, especially what Renita was making and Michelle, it goes to the whole thing about communication and relationship building. All right? Now, Miss Mala Pandey, who is a principal in New York of a high school, in her list, which included math, English, history, science, languages, and well, of course, for languages, she had a mix of Japanese, Spanish, Hindi, Mandarin, etc. But what was interesting listening to you guys is that she also included psychology and sociology. Michelle, what would be your take on that, on the inclusion of psychology and sociology?
I would give her 100. And here's why. Yes, I would give her 100, and here is why. I've been following Guyana very closely recently because I had separated myself from Guyana. But I've been following because I visited Guyana last year after a million years, and I was very impressed with what I had seen compared to what I had seen 13 years prior to that. So I look at what happens, and I look at how people become brainwashed, and their psyche is tarnished so quickly. And I believe if they understood the psychology of the mind, they would understand how they're being manipulated. They would understand how they're being played. They would be able to see things more. Sociology, being able to live within the context of a society and how we can work together as a society and to understand the different aspects of politics. I said politics, she said sociology. But even understanding like the Marxist theory, different controls that people have, I think it would help a great deal. So I would include those two. It doesn't have to be a subject at CXC because we get caught up in subjects at CXC, but there's learning that can take place outside of those subjects at CXC, right? That can still help our young people to grow. So I fully.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Renita, what's your take on that, on the inclusion of psychology and sociology?
I see it as being beneficial because I remember when I was in school, high school in Guyana, we learned about Maslow hierarchy. And Maslow hierarchy embodies all of that. And psychology, with what's going on in the world, if someone is like, you remember the same happiness thing, if someone is strengthened and cannot be easily swayed, as we saw 2 weeks ago in Washington, D.C., and certain aspects of a person is strengthened, you cannot, you cannot fall into Jim Jonesisms. You cannot be easily led. You should be able to see a situation, analyze it, and do a with them what's in it for me, right? So I think teaching basic psychology and helping to motivate and build strong character in our youth, we could prevent them from being easily swayed, from being easily led and easily led astray and influenced by people who have other means and outcomes instead of having the students' best interest at heart, having the country's best interest at heart. So again, psychology can be used to change mindset. And if we can implement those at school, we can actually get our kids to start opening up again, another field, another avenue where they can realize that, you know what, I belong, I can make a difference. We start working on them from that aspect. I think, we can actually help our society, our community, and our students.
Thank you, Anita. Terence, what about the inclusion of psychology and sociology?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of in agreement with this, with this thrust. I think, from a American context, it broadly amounts to something that the kids do here called civics, or at least some aspects of this get tied into the civics that kind of addresses sort of the questions that Michelle talked about around sort of understanding the political dynamics of the country in which you're living, knowing something about the Constitution, understanding what it means, what are the rules, etc. Recently, I've been not as disengaged as Michelle has been. I mean, I followed, many of the things and I was struck, and perhaps this is an appropriate place to say that, I was struck during the many trials that went to the Caribbean Court of Justice around the elections and so on. There was one lawyer there that really impressed me a lot. I mean, his name was Mendez or something like this. But why was I impressed? Mendez was a Trinidadian, or at least his accent sounded like he was someone from Trinidad. Except that he seemed to know. I mean, and it was clear he was very, very, very knowledgeable about things constitutional Guyana, more than the people in the room who were, nominally lawyers from Guyana, right? So, and I thought, that's interesting. I didn't know all of these details about, what the Constitution says on this place, or what does it say on that place, and so on. And I think that sort of knowledge, I mean, to be honest, I actually know more about the American Constitution from, the classes that we had in college and so on, and the studies that we were, than I do about the Constitution in Guyana. I'm ashamed to say that, but it's the truth, right? So that, that aspect of the civic engagement, so that what the rules are for the society that you're a part of, is something that I think has to be a part of the education. And so that takes on some sociological dimensions, some psychological dimensions. Yeah, so those are things that definitely need to be a part of it. And I think that, we don't have to go far. The model for what they use here is one says civics, and you actually study. So beyond learning the pledge and the national anthem, there are some other things that figure out how the society gets organized in a political sense and in a social sense. And those are things that you learn, so that you don't just wake up one day and find yourself at the CCJ and there's a guy named Mendez who's a Trinidadian who knows more about this Constitution than you do.
You see, Terence, I saw him differently, though. I saw him differently.
Yeah.
I saw him as being a great psychologist who knew the Constitution. He knew how to play on the different judges.
Well,
he understood the psychological makeup of them, and he understood when to humble, when to argue, when to say, Madam, your worship, you know, and
Yeah.
and he wasn't he didn't always seem aggressive, you know, so he was pleasing to the ear to listen to. And that brings us to the point of communication, you know. Till now I suffer with that. It's not something done in the country. I migrated from Guyana in my 30s, you know. Communication is extremely
Important.
important. Being able to communicate, being able to use your voice. And when you're taking professions like law, you have to be able to command the English language to a point that people would listen to you. And therefore, a speech class should go along with anyone who wants to become a lawyer because they need to understand that, you know. So there are a lot of little intricacies that need to take place in the country if we're thinking about revolutionizing the education system so that it is beneficial to all those brilliant minds that Guyana has, because Guyanese are really brilliant if tapped into.
Mm. But right, I just want to mention again, if we, the sociological problems and issues that we have, you making diversity and inclusion a verb can address those, can change perspective, can change mindset. So people for years have been doing exclusivity and just clinging to their little niches. All the blacks over here, all the Indians over here, all the white folks over there. And we all don't realize if we all bring something different, a different opinion, a different perspective, a different result, and we come together, all those little sociological issues and perspective can be addressed by just making diversity and inclusion a verb. Let it stop being a catchphrase. It's a nice catchphrase. Oh, let's practice diversity and inclusion. No, let's execute diversity and inclusion.
Right, but the blacks are not all over. So when I think about Guyana, and when I think about why people don't necessarily listen to you, okay, my mom was a teacher. She became a principal later in life, right? So she was not a lawyer. She was not a known name. So even among the blacks, right, you have the different groups of people who think that they remain elitists whether they have pursued a particular level of learning or understanding, right? So you don't get to move from that tier within their minds. Their minds are so fixed that it becomes so difficult for them to move out from that tier. And you look, me personally, I look at you with a lot of at people like that with a lot of self-pity, because they wallow and die in that closeness of the mind, you know. And come back to the happiness, I don't know how they can be happy under those circumstances, but that's where we are, you know. We have to be able to understand that poverty is not your mental ability, that color or the texture of your hair is not your mental ability. People have different talents, and not everyone will become excellent in life because they were able to go to college and graduate. I have a friend who got pregnant in high school, and she was able to, she got pregnant, she got another child, she got married to the guy eventually. She went into hairdressing. She had one of the best hairdressing salons in Guyana. She migrated and she makes just as much money as me now doing the same business. That's a skill.
Mhm.
That's a skill. Everyone can survive. We just have to tap into the best of their skills and we have to show respect. And I think that's what you meant when you said include everyone, bring everybody together, you know, regardless of class, color, or creed. Bring us
But that's
together. We have a voice. Yes. Get us to say, you know, what, hear what we have to say. Even the
but
dull
that's
and the ignorant, they too
have
have
their
this.
say. Exactly. That's what diversity and inclusion mean. I mean, you include the people with the degrees. You include the people with the technical skills. You include the different generations, the Generation X, millennials. That's what inclusion means. Include the ones who think they're at that level. Include the ones, because we all bring something to the table. We're all part of this chain that needs to connect in order for everything to work.
Okay. I want to close off. Now, when I say close off, we're going to continue this conversation next week because, there's a lot of unsaid things. The responses of some other folks that I haven't even started to get to yet. So we will definitely continue this conversation next week. But in reading, CXC offers 3 associate degrees. And in reading the subject breakdown, I found it very interesting. And I'm going to read it out, and I want you guys to tell me if maybe some of these subjects should have been moved back from as far back as high school as against, after high school. All right? Now, they offer associate degrees in the arts, business studies, associate degrees in the arts, in humanities, and an associate degree in science. Now, under the business stream, there is accounting, economics, entrepreneurship, and interestingly enough, logistics and supply chain operations. That comes under business. In the humanities, there's history, sociology, law, modern languages, visual communication, performing arts, and tourism studies. In the sciences, for the associate degree, there is maths, IT, natural sciences, environmental sciences, food and nutrition, sports studies, agriculture, and industrial technology. Terence, just quickly from hearing that list, we're going to go deep into it next week. Would you say that some of those subjects should have been moved back into high school in that same specialized manner, or is it better at the tertiary level?
No, I'm of the opinion that these things need to get done or need to be done earlier. I think I've looked at some of the CXC papers and so on, and I think that they need to be made more rigorous. And so what technically might be an associate degree might really be the thing that our young people need to graduate from high school with this sort of associate degree. That's the platform on which you really want to build. They shouldn't finish high school and then have to go start doing this sort of stuff. I think there's more than enough there. I want to say, I know we're coming on the end, but the one point I want to come back to, if I get a chance, is to say something about maths and what the math curriculum might look like. But I'll wait for that. But my answer to your specific question is, I think these CXC associate degrees might be better things for our students in high school. And it might seem that it's far away, but actually it's really not if you actually look specifically at what was being offered in the various tracks. Yeah.
Okay. Your take, Michelle.
You're muted.
Yes, I think you see, when I think of an educational curriculum, you think education is the area where you're building the society, where you're putting people in society at a level where they can function. If the vast majority of your students are not coming out with that associate degree, then that learning is again stuck to just that group of persons who will get it. When we need the vast majority of people to understand logistics and supply, visual communication, IT, some of the subjects offered under the humanities curricula, especially, being able to market, agriculture. We have so much land in Guyana. How can you have a curriculum in Guyana without agriculture? You know, agriculture is very important. We feed, I still believe in that. 1975 has passed a long time, but we should be able to feed, clothe, and house ourselves in Guyana, you know? So, in my
That was a
opinion,
good communication slogan: feed, clothe, and
yes,
housing.
yes, yes, yes. And if
I
we,
still remember.
if, yes, you got you can't help but start, you know. But if we really educate our young people where they are able to become um, to function in society, then we have to include some of these things very early. Now, do they have to go into every one of those subjects in depth? No, my friends in the agriculture field know I send my plant leaves to them, my pictures, and ask them, what should I use, right? Because they are the people who are skilled in that area. But I understand how to plant, and I understand we need nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium for the soil. So I know that I have to get that because I did that subject in school. So you don't have to go in depth, but at least you have to touch some level. And I don't know, I'm going to look into get more information about what subjects are offered between Form 1 and Form 3, because that's very important.
Communication slogan.
See, I don't know what is a CXC associate. Is the CXC taken in high school?
Say that again.
I don't understand what is a CXC associate. Isn't it CXC done at the end of high school?
Yeah, but no. Well, they've grown. They've grown since our time. All right, and I think they saw a reason to do this to go beyond just the Cape and the CXC as we know it.
Oh, so when they write CXC, then they go and do something else that's called a CXC associate.
This is an option. This is associate degree is an optional degree.
Oh,
right. It's something that you can go and write.
Well, I'm going by my niece, right? Because she went after me, after us. She didn't even go to sixth form. She finished her high school, and she went straight to university. So she was a pharmacist at 20 something, right? So to me, if this is just me, she changed my mindset. I went to sixth form. She didn't. She went from high school and she said, Auntie, I'm going to go straight to university. The 2 years for what? Just to say I got 3 A levels, 4 A levels. So she graduated from QC and she went straight to university. And the 2 years she would have been doing sixth form, she already had under her belt at the university, which I think is smart. So I don't know what the CXC associates is, so I really cannot speak on something that I'm not familiar about. So I didn't even know that existed. So that's new to me. So.
All right. Just to let you know, Reneto, it's different from the Cape. It's different from your sixth form. All right. I think it's basically equivalent to an associate degree that you would get at a college or university in the US. You do 2 years of a bachelor's as against doing the full 4 years and that kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I just looked at the variety of subjects that they have there. Right, and it seemed like some of those subjects to me actually belonged in high school, as against you're dealing with that after high school.
Right, even if it's introduced at an introductory level, like business 101, something 101, at an introductory level in high school, So by the time you go to the CXC associate, you haven't taken the introductory level, would be like an elective already taken by the students. But I need to go and research this CXC associate so I can understand what it is, how one attains it before I can speak on it. So I can't.
Okay, definitely. So we'll go more into that next week, and we're gonna try to narrow down our list, come to an agreement as what we think should be those core subjects and electives. I shall also go into some of the feedback that I've gotten from people that I've reached out to, and so thanks again for being here, and thanks a lot to all those folks, Terrence Roberts, Malika Clark, all those other folks in the chat. Reneto, can you take us out, please?
Okay. Again, first of all, I'm sorry for my tardiness. I apologize for not being on signing in on time. So I apologize for that ahead of time. And because I know Dr. Luard and Dr. Blackman, their time is very, special. And for them to take time out on a Friday because they're educators, after dealing with the new norm of teaching, I know they're probably just looking forward to the weekend. So once again, I thank you guys for taking your time out to be on the panel and to share your experiences and your knowledge with us. So thank you very much. Thank you, Andy, for being a gracious host.
Okay, folks. Thanks again, and we had a very spirited discussion this evening, and I look forward to more of this next week. And yes, I think there is a link. If you could Google it and search about the associate degrees being offered by the CXC. It's very interesting. All right. Thanks a lot. Yeah, go ahead.
And of course, I want to thank all the viewers who tuned in and who made comments and and agreed with us or give us other perspectives that we didn't think about. So I'd like to thank the viewers also.
Okay, thanks. And take care, guys. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good night, everyone. Andy, I'll go research. Don't worry.
Okay.
Like you said.
Maybe life is a journey, much like a car or van moving from point A to B. Maybe life is a race that offers rewards to both the swift and those who endure it to the end. Maybe life is a complex mathematical question that we just need to solve. Or maybe life is just a cosmic trend, something that happens every few years, like 100,000 years or so. And then poof, just like that, it's gone. Do join us as we try to figure this whole thing out. This is The Trending Mind, Friday evenings at 7 on Facebook Live.